Three stunning women get stuck in an elevator with Elon Musk. What follows is an unexpected confrontation that sparks inspiration and leaves a lasting impression. Elon Musk entered the sleek, modern elevator, his mind sharp and focused on the upcoming tech conference. The doors began to close, but just as they were about to shut, three women hurried in. The first was a glamorous model, poised and confident, her perfect exterior betraying little emotion as she nodded politely at Elon, unaware of his identity. Behind her stepped a no-nonsense CEO of a high-end fashion company, her sharp eyes scanning the elevator with the air of someone who had seen it all. Lastly, a shy engineer entered, clutching her conference badge tightly, her nervous energy palpable. Her eyes flickered to Elon in recognition, but her introverted nature held her back from speaking. As the doors shut with a soft ding, the model and CEO both asked Elon to press their floor numbers. The engineer hesitated for a moment, but then pressed hers herself, a quiet tension hanging in the air. Elon, ever the gentleman, compiled without a word, his fingers lightly grazing the buttons. The elevator began its ascent, the air thick with anticipation, as if the very space between them was holding its breath. Something unexpected was about to unfold. Then, a faint hum began to vibrate through the walls. At first, it was barely noticeable, a slight buzzing sound that could have been dismissed as nothing. But Elon's sharp senses, honed over years of navigating the unknown, detected a strange irregularity in the noise. He listened closely. The sound grew louder, more erratic, pulsing in a way that made him uneasy. Something wasn't right. His mind raced, calculating. The elevator jolted slightly, almost imperceptibly at first. A twitch in the cables, perhaps. No, it was something more. Elon's eyes narrowed at the flickering lights. He stepped closer to the control panel, fingers hovering over the buttons as he assessed the malfunction. The elevator jerked, and his stance didn't waver. He was already planning his next move. He reached out and pressed the emergency button, his fingers cool against the panel. The women exchanged nervous glances, sensing the growing unease. The CEO, her voice tinged with fear, asked, "What is happening?" Elon gave a small, reassuring shrug, but there was no mistaking the tightness in his voice. "No need to worry. I've had worse elevator rides, but none with such a good crowd." The women, though still uneasy, exchange uncertain glances as Elon maintains his calm. Suddenly, the elevator jerked violently, shaking as if something unseen was gripping it. The lights flickered, casting an eerie glow over the space as the elevator came to a sudden halt. The women stumbled, trying to regain their balance. Elon, however, barely moved, his stance firm as he braced himself for the shock. He glanced over at the women, still calm despite the chaos. He said in a low, composed voice, "Well, that's not exactly how I planned the ride." The woman, now wide-eyed and shaken, glanced at Elon. His casual tone contrasted sharply with their rising panic. Not completely understanding how Elon knew it, the model whispered to herself, "Is he a magician, or what? Or is this a prank?" and shouted as loud as possible. The shy engineer girl, due to the sudden shock, fainted, and the fear of the CEO getting stuck in the elevator was visible on her face. Elon stayed calm, trying to find a way off the elevator, but a loud cry broke his focus. Turning to quiet them, he saw their fear. Fear not just of being stuck, but of the struggles in their lives. For a moment, he imagined being in their shoes, young, vulnerable, afraid of failure. Then, he saw the engineer girl faint and immediately pushed aside his thoughts to help her. As the engineer's body relaxed, Elon's hand moved to her wrist, applying a precise pressure that seemed instinctive. She stirred, blinking rapidly as her color slowly returned. Without a word, Elon gently helped her sit up, his hands steady on her shoulders, guiding her into an upright position. She gazed up at him, still dazed, but his calmness spoke louder than words. But reality hit hard when she realized they were stuck midway. The dream shattered as panic set in and she began to shout. Elon, ever composed on the outside, kept his cool but couldn't help the fleeting thought that ran through his mind. This isn't as easy as he seems. He might not have the answers, but he can't let them know that right now. He said, with a calm voice, "Don't worry, help's on the way. It's just a little glitch." The model and CEO, still skeptical, shot back, "How could you know that?" Tears started to well up in their eyes, but the shy engineer, finally finding her voice, interjected, "He knows because he's Elon Musk." The name rang a bell for the two women, but they had never seen him in person. The CEO gasped, "OMG, are you the Elon Musk?" Elon smiled, his trademark calm unwavering, though internally he knew it was far from over. "Yes, I'm that Elon Musk. Now, if you can keep your calm, I might be able to do something to get us out of here." Elon shifted his focus back to the control panel, his hands working quickly, flipping switches and twisting dials. His face remained expressionless, but the sharpness in his eyes showed his deep concentration. The women exchanged glances, unsure of what he was doing, but no longer questioning his ability. They could see his hands moving with confidence, steadying the machinery that had caused their panic. Realizing he needed to keep them engaged if he wanted to maintain calm, Elon flashed a smirk and posed a simple question. "Since we're stuck in here, why not introduce yourselves?" The model nervously adjusts her position and glances at Elon. "I almost had it all. Then the runway mishap happened and everything fell apart." The CEO, sensing her vulnerability, asked, "What happened?" The model hesitates for a moment, then shrugs. "It was a viral moment. My career almost tanked because of it." Elon, still focused on the elevator's control panel, glances at her briefly, offering a calm, reassuring smile. Sometimes we think one mistake defines us, but the real challenge is how we bounce back. Then the CEO started. The CEO sighed, her gaze shifting from the control panel to the women. "You know, I've built my company from the ground up, but I can't shake the feeling that something is missing." It resonated with Elon Musk when he thought about it. It was the time of SpaceX, when only he believed in the idea of sending people to the moon. He gave a proud smile and kept looking at the elevator for the problem, but it got quiet. He realized that only 2 women had introduced themselves yet, but there were 3. As he turned back with a question, "What about you?" His eyes glazed over a sad, shy engineer. She fumbled, "Me. Elon nodded and said, "Don't worry, no one will hear you. Actually, no one can." He laughed to lighten the moment, and it did. The engineer started with her nerd talk as she glanced at the other women, her voice barely above a whisper. I always thought I'd do more, you know. Like, I was at the top of my class and I got the job, but I don't know, I thought I'd be doing bigger things by now." There was some spark in her eyes that Elon could resonate with as a tech expert himself, but a fear of failure lingered over her. After listening to them, Elon quickly said, "I guess they need more help from me than this elevator." It was a quiet whisper, but enough to be heard by these women, to which they quickly questioned him. Elon Musk looked at them and said, "Nothing, I was just figuring out something about the elevator. It was built in 2010 by a Chinese company. They never work." This lightened the moment in the elevator even more. These women, who were panicking before, now relaxed as if they knew they were safe. But the model quickly asked, "So, what brings you here of all places?" Elon, still busy while figuring out the problem, said, "I'm here for the tech conference." He quickly pulled out a little tool that he always kept in his pocket and started to open the mainframe of the elevator. The model saw this and asked, "What are you doing?" He knew if he told them what he was doing, they would start panicking again. So he ignored the question and asked the model why she doesn't outreach magazines anymore. The model heard the question, but it recalled the moment when the runway mishap happened. Not completely starting out the story, she said, "I'm terrified. My fall-off pictures went viral. When they see my application, they'll just laugh." Elon Musk, while still working on the mainframe, said, "If you're afraid of what people will do, you should have stayed at home." This made the model questioning her belief, but she knew it was easier said than done. "Well, what do you know about it? You're rich." To which Elon Musk quickly replied, "Yes, you're right. I don't know what you feel, but I can resonate in my own way." This was the reply that the model never expected. How could someone so rich feel what she was going through? It made all of them think and ask what he meant. Elon Musk quickly looked back while holding the mainframe in his hand, smiled as if he knew where the conversation was going, but he didn't want to tell his story. To keep them engaged, he teased them out with the difficulties he had faced. "Do you think it's easy to compete with NASA? Think of the laughter that has followed me since." Elon's words hit hard, and both the engineer and CEO exchanged quiet murmurs about the viral news, each of them sensing the weight on Elon Musk's shoulders. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the model finally asked, "Do you think I should keep doing it?" Elon paused, then replied, "Is it something you love?" The model nodded. "Then yes, keep going." In the brief silence that followed, Elon added, "Bingo!" His excitement seemed to hit the mark. He had found the answer to why the elevator malfunctioned. However, his excitement raised questions in the trio, causing them to exchange wary glances. To quickly diffuse the tension, he turned to the model and said, "Bingo, you can keep following your passion." Her mood shifted instantly, and she felt a surge of motivation, her fear of failure now dissipating. Meanwhile, the CEO observed Elon with growing admiration, impressed by how someone of his stature could remain so humble and grounded. A spark flickered in her eyes as she sought his insight, though she hesitated to speak up. As the elevator hummed with another jolt, the tension seemed to pause for a brief moment. The buzzing in the air faded as Elon turned his attention back to the group. With a calm look, Elon turned to the CEO and spoke. "Sustainability isn't just about materials, it's how you think about it. Most see it as a simple challenge, but that's the mistake." Elon's words hung in the air, and the CEO's expression shifted from curiosity to understanding. He didn't just speak, he painted a vision. "Most people see sustainability as reducing harm," Elon continued. "But what if it's about improving the planet? We need to think exponentially, not incrementally." The CEO leaned forward, her eyes widening as the idea settled in. She silently admired how Elon had remembered her introduction, the quiet admiration in her gaze speaking volumes about the impression he had just made. She was taken aback by his unconventional perspective. It wasn't the typical advice from other CEOs she'd heard, but it sparked something in her. "You're saying, take the problem and flip it, make it part of the solution?" she asked. Elon nodded without missing a beat, a slight grin on his face. "Exactly. Be bold." He paused, giving her a thoughtful look. "Sometimes the best way to innovate is by staying calm in tough situations." The elevator lurched, and the trio fell into silence, the conversation lingering. The model, arms crossed, raised an eyebrow and glanced at the CEO, a flicker of realization in her eyes. Elon's words seemed to shift her perspective, making her briefly consider the deeper impact of her work. In the corner, The shy engineer, arms tightly folded, looked up, wide-eyed. Elon's words had struck a chord, and she began to imagine her contributions as part of something bigger. Her hands, once nervously fidgeting, grew still as she processed the idea of rethinking her approach to innovation. As the elevator stood still, an unspoken understanding passed among them. Each silently pondered the weight of Elon's words. The engineer hesitated, shifting nervously. She muttered quietly to herself, almost as if questioning the air rather than anyone in particular. But what if my ideas aren't enough to change anything? Elon, focused on repairing the elevator with quiet determination, glanced up briefly. Without missing a beat, he responded, "The beauty of innovation is that it doesn't always start with a perfect solution. It starts with curiosity and a willingness to act." He returned to his work, his hands moving with mechanical precision. If you're willing to keep asking questions and testing your ideas, the answers will come. The shy engineer watched him for a moment, letting his words sink in. There was no grand speech, no dramatic revelation, just simple, practical advice. Yet somehow it instilled a newfound confidence in her to try something bold. The trio stood in silence, reflecting on what Elon said. For a moment, they forgot they were stuck mid-air. Their thoughts swirled with new possibilities, ideas of transforming their work and daring to innovate in ways they had never considered before. The hum of the elevator faded into the background, and the outside world felt distant. As the elevator jolts and Elon starts working on the control panel, the women grow increasingly anxious. Elon is still focused, but now he encounters a specific issue he can't easily solve on his own. He looks at the control panel, muttering to himself about the malfunction. This system's a mess. The women looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Elon pressed a few more switches, but nothing responded. A brief silence settled in as he examined the screen more closely. His expression shifted as he realized the severity of the issue. The failsafe is engaged. It's a software bug, and it's beyond what I can do in this space, he muttered. The shy engineer, who had been quiet until then, noticed something on the control panel, a disconnected component that needed resetting. She hesitated, but the thought of not stepping forward gnawed at her. Finally she spoke, her voice quiet yet steady. "I think I know what might be wrong." Elon looked up, surprised. The other women turned toward her as well. "What do you mean?" he asked. "There's a manual override switch," she replied, her voice soft but gaining strength. "It's hidden behind this panel. I read about it in the manual this morning. I could show you how to reset it." Model raised an eyebrow. "You can do that?" "I've worked with systems like this before," the shy engineer said, the words coming with more confidence. "Just not under pressure." Elon paused for a moment before stepping aside. Without saying a word, he acknowledged her. The shy engineer approached the panel slowly, her hands steadying as she began guiding him through the steps. Instead of handling it all herself, though, she asked for help when needed. "I need that tool you have in your pocket, the small wrench," she said quietly. Elon handed it over without hesitation. As they worked together, the women observed the shy engineer becoming more assertive, her confidence growing with every step she took. When she finally stepped back, Elon took a moment, looking at the control panel with a sense of awe. He turned to her, his expression softening. "Impressive," he said, the words simple, but carrying a weight of genuine admiration. The other women nodded, watching the shy engineer, who now stood a little taller, a small smile tugging at her lips. A brief tension hangs in the air as the women watch Elon, his fingers swiftly moving across the panel. With a soft click, the elevator hums back to life, the lights flickering on. They snap back to reality when they feel a jolt, seeing Elon's calm, focused expression. With a final turn of a dial, the elevator whirs to life, and the doors slide open, releasing them from the confined space. The model, her voice filled with gratitude and awe, turned to Elon. "You're not just a genius, you're surprisingly down to earth." Elon smirked, a glint of humor in his eyes. "Even geniuses get stuck sometimes," he replied casually, stepping out of the elevator. The trio stood there for a moment, watching him walk away with his signature confidence and charisma. They exchanged glances, still awestruck by how effortlessly he had solved the problem and by the unexpected, thought-provoking conversation they'd shared. As the elevator doors closed behind them, they felt a renewed sense of purpose and inspiration. They had learned that even in the most challenging situations, staying calm and thinking creatively could lead to powerful moments of growth and leave a lasting impression. If this story has inspired you, you'll love what's next. Subscribe to watch more.